Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to take a look at the Magicka Nightblade PvE build for Dragonbones DLC. I do have a written guide on my website. I'll put a link in the description. Magicka Nightblades are one of the strongest ranged setups in Dungeon and Trials. In this update, as you can see, we have really good stats. I will get into the stats in a second. I'm using the Apprentice Mundus Stone. You really want to boost your spell damage. You usually already have enough spell penetration, so you don't necessarily need the lever. Buff food wise, we're using max health, max Magicka. If you feel you don't have enough sustain, you could run the Witch Mothers, but you really shouldn't have too big troubles to actually sustain, especially if you get bubbles from healers. In terms of race, I would either choose Dark Elf or High Elf. Both are very good. Now here, if you actually choose to run double Fire Staves, Dark Elf will probably be better. Also when you choose to run San gets buffed by Dark Elf passives. As you can see, 7% more flame damage, and we also get 2% shock and frost. You can see here we have 3% max Magicka and then another 6% here. So we also get a lot of overall max Magicka. High Elf, more or less the same. It only has 4% flame damage, but then 4% shock. You could also run, for example, a Breton or Argonian if you want to, but you will lose a bit of damage. So really try to either go with a Dark Elf or a High Elf. If you want, you could be a vampire, but it's really not necessary. The sustain is so good on Magicka Nightblades compared to other setups, it will be more or less easy to sustain. Please make sure to not forget to subscribe. I will upload more videos in the future. Now in terms of gear set, what are we looking at? So there is more or less two good combos. First off, the classic like 5 Master Architect, 5 Mechanical Acuity. Master Architect is nice because you can see when you use an ultimate ability, you and the closest 2 allies gain Major Slayer for 10 seconds, increasing your damage done to dungeon and trial monsters by 15%. But this is especially effective because we have access to ultimate like Soul Harvest, which only costs 70 ulti points. And with passives, we can boost our ulti regeneration by quite a bit. So we will get a really high uptime on the Major Slayer buff. The second set, obviously also like all the other bonus are really nice. We get Minor Slayer as well, spell damage and max Magicka. Now this here, we get spell damage, max Magicka, and when you deal damage you have a 50% chance to gain Unerring Mechanical Vision for 5 seconds, causing your attacks to always be a critical strike. It has a really high cooldown, so you will get around 26 to 28% uptime, but still it's worth it. This set is really strong on Nightblades, whether be it Magicka or Stamina. Now, I will, like, why? Basically, as you can see here, we have Soul Harvest. When we activate this, we get 20% increased damage for the next seconds, on top of the 15% from Major Slayer, and then all our hits the next 5 seconds will be crits. So it's just all that extra damage modifiers, kinda with all crits for 5 seconds is just so strong. And to kinda reliably proc it more or less on the front bar, we are only front barring the Acuity set. That's the next thing. Whether you front bar it or just have it on the body pieces, you will always get like 26% plus uptime. So I really recommend front barring it. It's just better. That's also like why we have Soul Harvest on the back bar. So we basically can apply all our dots on the ground, just wherever you want. You want then use Soul Harvest, Weapon Swap. Then we have all the damage modifiers on us for the next 6 to 10 seconds. And Mechanical Acuity almost immediately procs the moment we swap to the front bar. Oh, it's really strong. It says when you deal damage, you have 50% chance. And we have so much dots and just other stuff going, it will really proc fast. You just need to make sure to have your dots and all that stuff going before the sets proc. Then also we have one piece Magicka just to gain more spell damage. Make sure to have one heavy and one medium and then 5 light pieces, all divine with max Magicka. Because if you're using a normal buff food, you see we have 17.6k health. If somebody's using Eben, you're like at 18.67k. So you have so much health. Next thing, make sure to have all spell damage glyphs here. And in terms of weapon front bar on the Magicka Nightblade, you always want to have Inferno stuff. Make sure it's infused with a flame damage enchantment. The flame damage enchantment can proc burning, which deals a lot of damage on the target. So it's very important. Back bar, Maelstrom, Inferno stuff. Now, a lot of people ask, well actually most people don't ask, it just say Inferno or go home. It's not entirely true. You really want to make sure to talk with your group or like 4-man or trial group, whether you actually have enough off-balanced and shock abilities to still proc concussion. Yes, off-balance has a kind of a high cooldown on bosses, but on trash mobs it's still present, plus concussion still doesn't have any cooldown, and you really want to get that 8% extra damage from concussion. Now I'm using a Maelstrom Inferno stuff here, Nernhound with weapon damage or spell damage enchantment. It's all still like the best trade to go to for a raid environment or even dungeon. In case you don't have a Maelstrom Inferno, you could run something else. You actually could run a mechanical acuity set, or yeah, I have more suggestions on my website. Now the second thing you actually could change with this setup is simply change out this here. Let me actually see. This is medium, I need the light one, okay. The sun set is really strong, so just one thing, you need to be in melee range to proc this. It has only a 10-meter radius, very important. If you're in a 10-meter radius, use this. It's basically a no-brainer. It does so much damage, it's really strong. What does it do? First off, it gives you a spell crit. It's nice to have, but whatever. But the 2-piece bonus. When you damage a nearby enemy with a light or heavy attack, you have a 20% chance to create a beam of fire that will connect you to your enemy. The beam deals 5.2k flame damage every 1 second to your enemy for 5 seconds. Every second this damage increases by 50%. This has a 18 seconds cooldown. So despite its high cooldown, this set does so much damage. Like in a raid environment between 3 to 5k if you really can proc it more or less all the time. Like I have seen 20k plus crits on the last hit because it gets buffed so hard. It's really strong. So in dungeons, I really recommend using Sound because most of the times you can play in melee range and bosses will melt so fast if you have this set. It drops in scale color peak. I will have a guide on my website and YouTube soon, in case you have troubles there. Yes, you will lose the 5-piece Master Architect, but doesn't necessarily matter that much. You will do more damage like this. So we still have 4 pieces Master Architect because we still front bar mechanical acuity. As you can see, it's really easy to swap the gear. I only had to change my helmet and my shoulder, and that's it. So I really recommend experimenting around with those 2 setups. Obviously with the Master Architect set will also buff your group members' damage. But in the end, Sun, it just does so much damage, it's really good. Other than that, I think that covers it. In case you don't have access to all the sets, I still have like beginner setups on my website. Okay, let's move on. CP also quite changed. We only have 52 points here now because off balance is usually quite low. You still want quite a lot here because you have still damage over time effects. And then Master at Arms, a lot of our abilities are direct damage abilities, so you really want to have a lot of points in Master at Arms. 49 Elemental Expert, 30 Spell Erosion, 61 Elfborn. That's more or less the setup. I have quite a lot of points here because of the Mechanical Acuity set, so it's really worth it. Then we have 36, 37, 76, 49. We don't necessarily do a lot of heavy attacks on this setup, so make sure to have 76 here. 42. Pantheon Bastion just to gain a bigger shield size. 49, 49, 48. 66 and 8. This is more or less... I mean, those two always have more or less the same, but those 3 blue trees really different compared to other setups because we have so much direct damage abilities. In terms of skills, first let's just quickly go through the passives. Make sure to have all class passives, destruction stuff. Then you want to have light armor and also heavy armor, the Juggernaut just to increase your health a little bit. Because we run 1 heavy armor piece. If you're a vampire, make sure not to forget vampire. Then fighter skill, major skill, undaunted. Really make sure to have those. This one is especially nice. 6% more resources. Your racial passives, and then in the alchemy, medicinal use. This is really good because we are using potions. We are using those potions here. The spell crit or spell power potions, and they will last 30% longer, so we actually can keep the effects up for the full duration of the potion. That's why like we don't need a spell damage buff like major sorcery because we get it through potions. Just to show you a few nice passives. Where are we here? Okay, for example, pressure points increases your spell critical. This is really nice. Hemorrhage, a very strong passive, increases your critical damage by 10%. So it's really nice. Here we get more recovery in general, then more resistance. We are using Twisting Puff, so it actually procs. It's quite nice. More max health. Yeah, whatever. Then Catalyst, every time we drink a potion, we get 20 ultimate points. So you really want to make sure if you use an ultimate, use the ultimate and then use the potion. So you'll immediately get 20 ultimate points. More max Magicka. As you can see, we have Swallow Soul here, so it's actually quite nice. And just remember, like, while a siphoning ability is slotted, so you really need to make sure to have one of those. Front bar, and then here I have one on the back bar. Other than that, yeah, this is also nice to have. Anyway, now in terms of skills, let's start with the back bar. We have Blockade of Fire. Now you can see burning enemies take 20% more damage from this ability. It actually deals a lot of damage. And burning is procced quite easily because we have a flame enchantment on the front bar. So we have this here, Crippling Grasp, really nice single target dot. Always needs to be on the enemy. Now you see, this is 8 seconds and this is 8 seconds. That's why I have those two on the back bar. You basically apply your blockade and then the Crippling Grasp at the same time. If needed, apply a shield and siphoning attacks and then swap to the front bar again. Next skill, Harness Magicka. Only use this if you know there's a lot of damage incoming. So while we have this up, we get the 16k shield, so it's really strong. On top of that, while active up to 3 times when spell damage is absorbed, you restore 1.7k Magicka. So you actually get Magicka back if you get hit with a spell. Ciphering attacks, this is one of the main means to actually sustain better. Every time you do a light or heavy attack, you gain a small amount of Magicka, and at the end, you will gain a 4.3k Magicka when the effect ends. It's really nice. Make sure you let it run out to benefit from the full 4.3k. Inner Light, this is here to get 7% more max Magicka, 5% from the passive, and another 2% from Magicka Controller. Soul Harvest, this is our ultimate, like one of the ultimates we use. Obviously, if you have Fury Rage ready, use this. Otherwise, you can also use Soul Harvest. Especially if you have a full Master Architect setup for the Major Slayer. I really recommend using Soul Harvest throughout boss fights, because it just boosts your damage by quite a lot. Plus, by slot, at any time you kill an enemy, you gain 10 ultimate, so it's also nice. Another thing I maybe should mention, for Trash Fight, you actually could swap to a Shock Staff, because you still want to have some means of AoE damage through heavy attacks. And on boss fights you can run double Staff. Just another thought. Front bar Twisting Puff. Now this has a 12-second duration, it's also a very strong dot. The reason I have it in front bar is because it lasts longer than, for example, Blockade or Crippling. Now, in case you have troubles doing rotation, you actually could place this also on the back bar, just to simplify the rotation, so you can apply Blockade, Crippling and Twisting at the same time, then go back to the front bar and weave Swallow Soul with Merciless Resolve. But this here is kind of a more advanced setup, so you kinda benefit from the full duration. Merciless Resolve, very strong ability, increase your damage done by 8%, you get Minor Berserk, same buff Combat Prayer applies, and you have Assassin's Will, which deals 20k damage, and trust me, this will easily hit 50k plus in a dungeon or raid environment, even higher. It's just a little bit tricky to actually get, like, you need to get used to it. You need 5 light attacks to get it to proc, and you just need to kind of learn how to use it. Swallow Soul, this is one of the main reasons why we also have easier sustain compared to other setups. As you can see, 1.7k Magicka cost. If we compare this to like Crushing Shock, 2.4k. This is our main spammable, so it's just so much cheaper to actually use. That's why this is cheap, and then we have this like resource return, just amps up really well. On top of really nice, well, let's say of decent Magicka recovery. On top of that, this also heals you, so it's actually cool. Then Impale, another cheap ability, only used in Execute, 25% or less boss health. It also deals a lot of damage. Still, keep up your other dots. You really want to make sure to keep up the other dots and then use Impale. And now you can see, when you have like the Major Slayer with the Master Architect and Mechanical Acuity setup, and you use Soul Harvest, 20% more damage, Master Architect another 15%, and Acuity procs, you can get like 4 Impales in, and they all crit for a crazy amount of damage. So you will do so much Execute damage, it's really good. Inner Light, oh, maybe another thing to mention, on top it's also at 28 meters range, so that's another really nice thing. I do have a rotation on my website, like I said, link in the description. Then again, Inner Light just to boost our max Magicka, and Fury Rage. Now use this on trash fights, it's really strong. It has an 8 meter radius, it costs a lot, but the trash mobs will melt so fast. Now keep in mind, you need this on the front bar. Destruction Stuff passive Ancient Knowledge. As you can see, Flame Stuff increases your damage done with single target abilities by 8%, Lightning Stuff AoE damage by 8%. And this is only while you have a Destruction Stuff ability slotted, so any of those, either the skills or the ultimate. We have this on the front bar to gain 8% more single target damage. And on the back bar we have the blockade going. That's why you really need to have it like. A lot of people keep forgetting that. So I guess I covered everything. Again, it's important, play around, try to get sun, it's a really strong set. Adjust the builds to your needs, experiment around, this should function as a base. Other than that, make sure to not forget to subscribe and hit that juicy like button. In case you have any questions, ask me in the comment section below. You also can join my Discord, where a lot of people are theory crafting together. It's very nice there and a friendly environment. People are helpful. So for that, link also in the description below. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.